Hey guys, welcome back to Roots Refuge Farm. My name is Jess. If you're new here, I'm so glad that you're here. And if you're not new here, I'm also glad that you're here. Today I want to share a sort of recipe, something that we've been making in our house during this time of year for a really long time. It's become quite a staple in our home, and that's wassail, or wassail punch is what it's sometimes called. It's essentially a type of spiced cider. So as I go through this kind of not recipe, but the instructions of how I make this, do know that I'm going to put all the ingredients and the different things that I mentioned in a blog post. The link to that will be down below in the description of this video. Or you can find it at rootsrefuge.com under the kitchen tab, where we have lots of different recipes that you can go check out. Now, I'm a big believer in creating atmosphere in your home. So like if you want it to feel cozy and inviting and warm in your home, especially during a certain time of year like the holidays, like having traditions or basically repeated flavors and repeated smells and repeated actions and things that can be looked forward to. And wassail has kind of become one of those things. Now it's just a drink, but it's a drink that while it's simmering on the stove or in a crock pot, it just fills your home up with this warm holiday fragrance, and drinking it, you know, in a big mug is so comforting. And it's just, I mean, it's delicious, so it's enjoyable for that reason. I always have a crock pot of wassail going whenever we make Christmas cookies, or whenever, you know, it's Thanksgiving and that kind of thing. It now, when I start making that, it's something that triggers the memory of all those wonderful things that we've done together as a family for my kids. And so, and for us really. And I like stuff like that. I like things that can be repeated, that can have memories tied to them. Because, and this is like really kind of off topic, but I think it's a valuable tool to understand your kids are having like a highly emotional day, or when you are having a highly emotional day and things feel kind of out of control. Sometimes all it takes is putting a pot of wassail on the stove and being like, hey, let's sit down and have some time together. And what you're doing is kind of evoking all of those good memories and pulling them into a moment where you really just need to bring back some good memories. Does that make sense? I love this recipe because it's not really a recipe. It's super easy. I was actually looking up for this video, like, what's the history of wassail? Like, where did that come from? First use of that term came from Beowulf. It wasn't a drink in that regard in Beowulf. It was a greeting that was Wassail, which that's the southern version of that phrase, which meant like good health. And it was a toast to the king in Beowulf, and that was the way that it was used as a toast. But during those times, what was commonly served was like a long simmering punch that had lots of different like fruits and mulled wine and mead and different things like that. And so they would have a big pot of this with everything kind of thrown in. So that would be what they were toasting, was wassail. Also, there was a tradition in like pre-Christian Britain that was like a pagan tradition, and I'm not familiar with like all the different things of that, but it was basically where people would go out and they would sing to the cider making trees for good production, and that was called wassailing. So it was like singing good health over the trees. So kind of interesting little history. We also call it cider, so like it's just spiced, mulled spiced cider. Now, what I have today, sometimes I do some things different, and so I'm going to tell you kind of what I'm doing today, and I'm going to get a pot. I'm going to do this right here at this counter. Normally I would stand over the stove, but it would be hard to have the camera going. The cool thing about this is that it's not a recipe. Remember, the origin is from like a big simmer pot where things were just thrown in. And I'm sure you could do this in 100 different ways and it still be really, really tasty. Now you can do this obviously for as few or as many people as you want. I have definitely made wassail for one many times. Of course, that's been a long time ago, since before I had children, who as soon as they smell it, they're like, oh, can I have some? So now this is usually the smallest pot I ever use, which makes, you know, a handful of small cups or mugs of wassail. But I've also done like a really big stock pot before. If we have a party or anything like that, especially when it's cold outside, I will make gallons of wassail at a time. So you can scale this to whatever your needs are. If you're just trying to make it for one or two, I would just use the mugs you're gonna drink out of as your measuring cup. cups and fill them up to measure how much you actually need. I today am going to be putting this like cider and spice. Normally I just use apple juice, but I grabbed this at the store the other day, actually not fully reading the label, so it already has spices in it, but normally you would just use apple juice. Some orange juice, pineapple juice is also really good in this. Like I said, you could throw like wine or mead into it if you wanted to make it an alcoholic beverage. You're not gonna like do it wrong. I would just taste it as you go and then add to it if you want. I also have some whole cinnamon sticks, some whole cloves, and I have an apple and an orange. This can be done, I should say, in pots, or you can put it on low in a crock pot. The longer it simmers uncovered, of course, you're going to have evaporation and it's going to get more condensed. So if you do a long simmer on this, you might want to taste it and add some water to it if it's too potent. You can do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is take these washed fruits, I've got an orange and an apple, and I'm just going to cut them into slices. This is kind of one of those parts that you might do prettier if that is the person that you are. I'm not that person. Rustic and functional is fine with me. There's one step I do here though that is for the sake of being pretty, but is also functional. I take a handful of cloves. I would say, I'm trying to come up with measurements here so that this can be an actual recipe. I would say for 4 cups of wassail, we'll probably do about a tablespoon of cloves. Obviously, this is going to come down to your preference. Like the potency could also be affected by like how old your cloves are. But you're going to stick them along the edge of your apple slices. You can put them into orange slices too, depending on how like thick your rind is. Yeah, that's gonna work. See? And this is one, just because it's really pretty with these floating in the punch, but it also keeps, you know, anybody from accidentally ending up with a clove in their mouth. It keeps them kind of contained rather than just floating free in the drink. So if you make this and you want it to have a little more kick to it, just add more cloves next time. I'm not going to add any more today. I would say sometimes I might use extra, but because I am using that cider that actually already has some seasoning in it, I don't want this to be too strong. One thing you can also do is get mulling spices. Now this time of year, sometimes they'll sell mulling spices like in little bags already. You can order them bulk online. Mulling spices is something that I like to keep on hand because again, I really like making things that kind of lend to the atmosphere of my home. And mulling cider, it smells amazing while you're making it, and then it also tastes really good. All right, so I'm just putting all these in here. This is a lot of fruit for this small pot, but I mean, if I'm gonna cut them, I might as well. You can put other kinds of citrus in. You could do grapefruit, you could do lemons or anything like that. If you don't have regular oranges and you have the little tangelos or clementines, you can use those. Now what I like to do for my actual punch is I usually like to do 2/3 apple juice or cider in this case, just because it's sweeter and I don't add any sugar to mine. And then if I'm gonna do orange juice, I'll do like 1/3, or I might add in a little bit of pineapple juice. But I usually do stick with the majority of the beverage being apple because it's sweet. Also, it should be noted that like sometimes I'm doing a big pot and I only put 1 apple and 1 orange and maybe like a lemon in a big pot, because that's not massively gonna affect the flavor. Now if you really long simmer this with like a bunch of oranges in there's gonna be a lot of acid in the peel, which might give your punch a little bit of like a strong kick, and you might like that, you might not. But I don't put just a ton of fruit even in the bigger ones. I've also put pineapple in it before. That's another fruit that I've thrown into it. Just anything like that is gonna be really good. So here is this. Next, cinnamon sticks. What I usually do with cinnamon sticks is I put 1 stick per probably 10 ounces of liquid. So like I'm making probably 10 to 12 ounce mugs of this stuff. That's what I consider 1 serving. And so I'm putting 1 stick per, let's say 12 ounces. If you were making really small cups and you were doing 1 stick per 8 ounces, it could be a little strong. See, I'm telling you guys this. I'm just put 5 in here. This is not 50 ounces of liquid. I hope you feel empowered and not frustrated right now. You can really do whatever you want here, and it's going to be really good. Another thing to consider in how much spices you put in is how long you're going to simmer it. If you're just heating it up on the stove, more spices are going to convey to more flavor in a shorter period of time. Now, if you want to say like you're going to save on cinnamon sticks, you don't want to waste a bunch of them, you could put a few in and just simmer it longer and you're getting more flavor out of it. I'm going to do a fast simmer here because I want to drink this right now. Now, I'm going to put this over like medium-low heat. Oh, I'm turning the wrong burner on. What am I doing? The minimum I would want to let this simmer is for like 30 minutes. You can do an all-day thing. You can let people come in and drink it when it's halfway down, add more juice in. If you're just making it for like a snack after dinner, which is what this is, we're essentially going to just drink this evening after we get done eating dinner. 30 minutes is fine. What I like to do is take the fruit and put, an orange slice, an apple slice, a cinnamon stick into a big mug, pour the wassail over the top, and then drink it with those things in the mug. And that's it. That is the simplicity that is wassail punch. Now, I didn't add any sugar to mine because we don't really drink a lot of juice, and so that tastes very sweet to us. But if you like, sweeter things, you can add some sugar, you could add some brown sugar, would be really tasty. You can add some honey. One thing I have done, which is so good, is to get caramel sauce and like coat the inside of the mug and then the wassail in that. So good. Starbucks used to have a drink like a long time ago. I don't know, they might still have it, but I used to get it a long time ago called caramel apple spice, and it reminds me of that, like a caramelly spiced cider. But alas, I am not eating extra sugar right now, so I'll just have to share that idea with you guys to enjoy it. But yeah, that's wassail. It's super easy, flexible. You can go all different kinds of ways with it, but whichever way you go, I think you're gonna like it very much. And I hope that it becomes a great part of, the holiday season for you also. All this information, like I said, is going to be in the blog post. The link is down below if you want to go bookmark that so that you can reference back to it. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. And bless you. Until next time.